The way I look at culture is not just national differences, it's all kind of differences, what we have learned along the way, as opposed to what we are born with. So it covers, a great deal, really.
Hello and welcome to the coaching studio. I'm Lyssa deHart, your host, and it is my honor to introduce the coach in the studio today, Professor Philippe Rosinski. He's an MCC with the International Coaching Federation, as well as, and I don't know for sure, Philippe, but I'm sure you're also involved with the EMCC in Europe as well. And welcome to the show. I'm really delighted to have this opportunity to have a conversation with you today.
Thank you, Lyssa, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's very much a pleasure to have you here. I would love to hear. I know that there are some people born as coaches, but many of us have a very interesting story that led us to the place that we find ourselves. I would love to hear a little about your journey into coaching.
Well, I started as an engineer. My background is in engineering, studied that in Belgium, then went to Stanford University to get a master's in electrical engineering. But I took all my electives already in the humanities. So I've always been interested in human development as well. My first job was in the Silicon Valley as an engineer. Then I came back to Belgium, worked as an engineer and as a manager. But what struck me is that oftentimes the human potential is underutilized. And I was wondering, what could be done to change that? Because it is very unfortunate for people, for organizations, and for society when this potential is not very well utilized. And that was the beginning of a journey with a lot of self-learning, I have to say. I attended a number of seminars, I read a number of books, and eventually um, became a coach. I became a coach without knowing, in fact, that what I was doing was coaching. That was in the early 90s.
That's fascinating. And I mean, I love this curiosity about human potential and the impact that it has on people as well as organizations. Could Can you speak a little bit about what you see as you're working within organizations and how coaching impacts organizations and people?
Well, yes. Um, I think it is very unfortunate, first of all, that people typically we learn a lot of stuff at school, but I don't know how it is in the US, but in Belgium still, and in many places where I go, people don't learn so much about raising self-awareness, about interpersonal communication, about finding meaning and purpose in your life, building constructive relationships. All that is not being taught typically in high schools, certainly not yet.
Yeah. Well,
And
and I mean, I agree with you. I don't think that we prime our young people to be self-reflective or really look at, and in some ways, like this idea of meaning and purpose. I think we have lots of books on meaning and purpose, but I don't know that people really have a sense of what that even means for them, because maybe, and it certainly isn't happening in high school. It may be happening more as they hit their 30s and they start to go, oh wait, I'm not a teenager anymore, I'm not a kid. I wonder what my meaning and my purpose is.
and yes, and so we have people then in later in life who have not learned about that,
Hmm.
and that is really a difficulty, because then they may reach a certain age and they realize that what am I doing here? What is the purpose in my life? And they may have learned a lot of different things, but not so much about building constructive relationship with others, finding meaning and purpose in their own lives. And so that is a difficulty.
Well, and I mean, one of the things that I read about you was that you're really a pioneer in intercultural and global coaching. And so that gives me a sense, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it gives me a sense of you have a broad experience with a lot of different people from a lot of different cultures. What have you seen is maybe that calls people towards having more depth of curiosity about themselves and the way that they navigate the world around them?
Ah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. What I do find, because I'm currently delivering this program, leading and coaching across cultures, that it tends to attract people who are already very open and curious. What allowed them to be open and curious in the first place, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. Sometimes it could be that they've had the opportunity to meet with different people from different cultures, but even then, we see people who are expats in different countries and don't necessarily make the effort to reach out and meet people from different cultures and learn from different cultures. So that is not a guarantee. Being even confronted with cultural differences is not a guarantee that you will be eager to learn from those differences. So the short answer is I'm not sure. Yes, it could be sometimes people go through some hardship. I think that can happen sometimes, that people realize that they are on a certain path and they didn't ask themselves so many questions. They just followed a certain path in their life, and at some point they hit a block. That path is no longer fulfilling for them, and they realize that something is missing, and then begins an interrogation, questioning, and that may lead to some transformation sometimes, but that is not always the case. There are also people who have been open and curious from the beginning, maybe the way they were raised, being very open and curious from the beginning.
Yeah, no, and I think that's probably I think it's a very broad question I asked you, because I agree with you. I think that there's probably a myriad of reasons why a human being becomes a curious person versus a very focused, maybe very literal person, who, not that literal means you can't be curious, because I don't want to make that kind of global statement, but less curious versus more curious. I think there's an openness of willingness to be in wonder, I think, and not know, and I think that's a piece of it too, I'm sure.
I think the educational system has a role to play as well. Sometimes that curiosity is encouraged, but sometimes it is not. So sometimes what you see in certain educational systems is people becoming experts in one area. That's all they know. They become very good at that, but they have not developed a curiosity to learn from other fields, from other disciplines, from other sort of people, different types of people, different cultures. So that sometimes happens.
How does that, in your work, how have you seen these two different kinds of ways of being that your clients come to you with, that are within an organization? How do you see that playing out in how people work together across culture? Because many organizations these days are multicultural, for sure, and I'm curious what you notice as you're doing your work.
There is a difference between uniformity and unity, if I can put it this way. Uniformity is, you could have a situation where you have organizations with branches around the world, but they are just promoting one way of working, one way of being. That's uniformity, in the sense that there is an impoverishment. Differences are minimized, are trivialized. So we are all the same, is the motto, but it's not meant in the sense that we are all unique individuals and who can contribute our own perspective. No, it's a bland version of unity. Unity is instead when you have the idea of leveraging differences, when you have a synthesis of differences, when people can bring different perspectives, different viewpoints, and that is combined somehow and creates something greater than if you just had the individual parts taken separately. So that's the difference. And not, I think it is still unfortunately the exception more than the norm of having an organization that is really committed to unity in the way I've described it. What you often see is uniformity, and that is unfortunate. So yeah, I remember just a story working with an organization at the time saying, yes, we are very much into diversity. We are in different countries and so on. But when I was trying to find out what they meant by diversity, they meant, yes, we are in different parts of the world, but we are de facto imposing our way of being onto others. So that's not really unity. That's more the uniformity that is promoted.
I love the distinction between uniformity and unity, and the creative difference in unity, where you really, I don't know, embrace, explore the differences because of the different viewpoints, bringing forward different ways of thinking about problems, different ways of being creative, that is lost in the uniformity, right? That is not
Exactly.
available.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you work with an organization who is coming to a coach? And this is for coaches. So, I mean, just a little bit of curiosity on my part from you about how do you work with an organization where there is unity, and that is their sense of, like, we're diverse because we're in a lot of different countries, but there's still this sense of we're going to stamp our values, our ideas, our way of doing thing, our methodology onto you, person working for us. And how do you support them in becoming a bit more open and curious themselves as an organization?
Yes. So in that case of uniformity, I don't come across as judging them or saying that yeah, that's bad what you're doing. It's more about raising their awareness about if that's your current way, just be aware that you can address cultural differences in other ways. So this is your current way, but there are other ways where you can accept differences, you can adapt, you can integrate differences, you could even leverage differences. And so I explain this to them and try to raise their awareness about the impact this attitude can have. So if you have this attitude of wanting to impose your view, well, what usually will happen is you just generate alienation instead of engagement. Is that what you want? If the organization wants that, well, that's fine then. If you are happy to alienate people, if that's what you want to do, I mean, I cannot change anything. But if you realize that, well, in fact, that's not what we really want. We want to have people fully engaged, maybe not for humanistic reason. It's not that we really care about people, but simply from a business standpoint, we realize if we have disengaged people, we're not going to be so successful from a business standpoint. So there is a business case for wanting to engage people, for being able to attract people, to retain talented people. Certainly at the time of the great attrition, the great resignation,
Yes.
it is becoming more and more critical. So raising their awareness about the impact their current attitude has vis-à-vis diversity, and just showing them how different it could be and beneficial it could be for the organization as well as for all the people in the organization. Then after that, it's a matter of, in a way, educating them. Maybe that's not the appropriate word, but raising their knowledge about what are the cultural differences that you can come across, having a vocabulary to describe those differences, raising awareness about their own cultural orientations, and developing an appreciation for alternatives, alternative ways of thinking, alternative ways of communicating, of managing time, of organizing yourself. So you're not just stuck with one way of looking at the world, but you can embrace different ways, and you will realize that you can have a more creative approach, an approach that is going to be better suited to address different sorts of situations. So you're not just stuck with your worldview, but you have more options, more behavioral options available. So there are many benefits in a way, and that's, I think that would be the approach, is just to show them there's so much more that you could do if you were
Yeah.
aware about your attitude and other possible attitudes, and if you were more knowledgeable about, what culture is about and what may be your blind spots, as well as the opportunities for development.
Yeah.
Sorry, a
You
long
know,
answer to your question.
yeah, it's so fascinating because I think I don't know what it is about the human brain that has us wired so specifically to want to be right. That seems to be a part of the human experience. And so I wonder how much of letting go of rightness is a piece of that human development, so that we can be, see that there are many different ways to manage time, many different ways to solve problems, many different ways to be diverse, and that even the diversity isn't even just cultural diversity, although that's obviously a huge element of it, but that each of us are our own culture to some degree also.
That,
I may look like you,
that
but we may come from very different experiences.
that's for me culture too, by the way. The way I look at culture is not just national differences, it's all kind of differences. It's what we have learned along the way, as opposed to what we are born with. So it covers, a great deal, really. I think I'm not sure that we are hardwired to just be stuck in a certain worldview. I think it's more a, more a question of culture. And it seems that according to some research in neurosciences, our brain are much more plastic than much more flexible than we once thought. So it's just I think what we have learned we can but not maybe not easily, but we can unlearn and relearn if
Mhm.
we just open ourselves to that possibility. It's
Yeah.
not as difficult as we might think if we see the benefit of doing that. If we see the benefit.
Right. And I think that's a key element, right? That we have to see that the benefits outweigh the cost of thinking outside of the way that we typically habitually do, right? It takes
And,
it. Go ahead.
and something I want to say also, Lyssa, is that the good news is sometimes there isn't really a cost because it doesn't have to be one way or the other way. What I'm trying to promote is a form of thinking that is in terms of and versus or. So it's not that I need to give up my cultural preference to embrace yours. Is how can we co-create something new where we retain the best in our respective cultures? So, I mean, a very simple example. You may prefer, let's say, direct communication. I'm just making this up. Let's say I prefer indirect communication. How can we have it both? Well, if we find a way of communicating that is both clear and sensitive, we have the best of both worlds. We have retained the quality of direct communication, which is the quality which is really about clarity, as well as the value or the merit of indirect communication, which is sensitivity. So it's about finding ways of having the best of both worlds. It's about, I mean, if I give another example, control versus humility, taking charge, making things happen, believing that, hey, you can achieve whatever you want if you work hard, persevere. That's the control belief. Um, Humility would be about letting go. Inshallah, it's a question of luck and fate, I believe. It's not in my hands, to succeed. It's a question of fate and luck. How could we have the two together? Well, we could act with determination as if we had all the power, while at the same time recognizing that ultimately it's not in our hands alone. So we can learn to act with determination and at the same time learn when it's best to let go. And paradoxically, when we accept our limitations, when we learn to let go, we may have greater success because it's not success against all odds. It's a more sustainable form of success, a success that takes all limitations into account. So, I mean, I could go on and on and on, but the idea is to think more in terms of hands. So that's how you build unity. So we don't need to give up anything. We just need to co-create something new. Um, it may not always be possible, but oftentimes it is.
Yeah. And I think even just having that context framed in that way of it's an and, it's very improvisational, right? In that particular regard also where it's the yes and there's a sense of seeing new possibilities. It isn't me giving up me and you giving up you in order to create this third thing, but rather just an openness that both can exist and both do. It sort of reminds me, I was in a team training and we were in our little team that we were training, and we had a project we were supposed to do, and it wasn't going very well, mostly because we all had such very different styles of how we showed up in the team. And I had read an article at that time, and one of the things that they did was, because some of the people in the team were very extroverted and some of the people in the team were very introverted as a style. And so, there was oversharing on one side and undersharing on the other. And in the article, they talked about everybody taking whatever the goal was and then coming up with a plan all by themselves, and then bringing that to the team so the team could hear all perspectives. And then that way, everybody, even the quieter people, could be heard, and not only the people who were, comfortable talking in front of a group, whether they were introverted or extroverted. And so this sort of reminds me a little bit of that idea of the unity of bringing forward everybody's brilliance versus just the couple of people who are, loud
Indeed,
or
yes.
confident, maybe, is a,
Yes, indeed. Yes,
How do you,
absolutely.
a lot of the people who listen to this podcast are coming here because I talk to MCC coaches, because I think there's a journey that an MCC coach has probably gone through. And I know you were the first MCC in Europe. And so I'm really curious about your journey towards mastery and coaching. Like, how do you see that continuing? How do you see that movement in your own experience of how you work with people and in your own life? That may be a very big question. So take the parts
Yes.
that resonate.
Well, for me, I've developed something called global coaching. Global, not in the sense of international, but more in the sense of an integrated form of coaching. So it's really about learning from multiple perspectives, from multiple disciplines. So coaching can be informed by nutrition, by physical exercise, as well as by philosophy, spirituality, politics. There are many perspectives that can inform coaching. And so this gives me an opportunity to continue to learn from many different disciplines. So that's what also excites me. It's not just to be an expert in one area, but to continue to learn in different ways. So, for example, not long ago, I took a course in philosophical ethics because I was asked to write a book chapter on ethics across cultures or something like that, and I realized that I didn't know enough about ethics to be able to write that, and so I took a course on philosophical ethics and realized that there is a lot of interesting thoughts there that most coaches would not be even aware of, because we may just know about the codes of ethics, from our different coaching associations, and there is a lot more that could be learned in this area. I mean, I can talk about this if you want, but
It's so funny because I was watching a show last night and I went to bed thinking about just how different people are ethically aligned, but their ethics are incredibly different. So actually, I would love to hear more about what you've discovered.
For me, yes, I can say a few things about that, but this is just one of the topics.
Yeah.
Before that, I took a course in artificial intelligence and another one in neuroscience. I'm certainly not an expert in these areas, but I wanted to know something about it. So to take courses, so at least I have some basic knowledge. Yeah, I can have a comment about that as well. But and other areas, maybe just physical exercise. There's a lot of science of exercise as well that we can learn from. But going back to ethics, one thing that strikes me is that there is very much an emphasis on deontology. If you look at coaching, we focus on, for example, respecting confidentiality. We want to make sure that we don't have any conflicts of interest, for example. So that could be considered part of deontology. But we don't think so much about the impact of what we are doing. So let me give an example. If I'm going to work for a company that is selling junk food, but they play it by the book. They respect the different rules, and when I would work with them, I would respect confidentiality, and I would respect the different elements in the code of ethics. Is that ethical? Not so much in my view. If I'm helping a company just sell some junk food, or a company that doesn't care about polluting the environment, doesn't make even an effort to change that because they just want to make more profit and they don't care about the societal or environmental impact, I would argue that this is not ethical from a utilitarian standpoint, where the idea is, the greatest good for the greatest number. If you look at that as a criterion, I mean, this approach would not be ethical. I mean, this is just a simple example. So I think considering the impact of what we are doing, either directly or the impact we are helping to promote through our coaching, is something very important for coaches. And for example, you look at the UN sustainability goals. I don't see that part of coaching codes of ethics. I think it should be, in my view. So it's just an example.
Well, and that really takes into consideration one's self-awareness, because if I know that I have strong values around X, Y, and Z, and I go into work in an organization that the values of the organization are out of alignment with the things that I feel are important, I talk to coaches and they're like, I don't like the clients that I'm working with. I think this might be a really important reason, right? Where we have a disconnect and an out of alignment with our own values and the values of the organization or the person.
Yes. And let me say something. When I say, I think it's fair enough to say that it's important to have at least some degree of alignment between our values and the values of the organization we are working with. But if you look at this from a cultural standpoint, that is, this idea is very much part of an individualistic culture, where it's about me, my values, and how does that compare to the values of the organization. I think we can look at this from a more collectivistic standpoint, where my values don't matter that much in a way. I mean, from a collectivistic standpoint, what matters is the collectivity. And it's are there any values that we should pay attention to for the benefit of the collectivity? I think that is the question. So it's not just solely a question of are my values aligned with the value of the organization, although that's clearly, I'm thinking in that way too, that's clearly important. But I think we need to go beyond our own values and consider the values that are needed today for the world at large and for society.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a much bigger way of considering our ethical decision making, right? In the way that we look at the world around us and we think this is what is good for the greater good for the greater number, to go back to that.
And it's much more complex than that. And there are different other, I certainly I don't consider myself an expert in this topic, but at least I've read several books and became interested in that. And that's just one example. We can get deeper in our reflection in this area, but that's true in other areas as well. Take the example of culture. It's still today an area that is not so well known by coaches, and it is now part of many coaching programs. That wasn't the case several years ago. So coaching across culture was not part of coaching education. Now it is I see in many excellent programs that there is a place for that, but still in many coaching programs that is not even addressed at all, which I think is strange as you say, in the intercultural global world in which we live. That should be part of what every coach should learn, in my view. But still, an area that requires some homework, some learning. It's more demanding than just learning the GROW model. You need to make an effort to learn about it.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's far more complex than that. And if we didn't learn it in high school, I think we need to learn it in coaching school. I think it's the appropriate place. You know, something that came up as you were talking, and I know ethics kind of was a focus because I was really curious about that, but also, you know, the other elements where we're looking at the things that we use to inform our curiosity in the places where we continue to learn and grow, like exercise or whether it's philosophy or science, or it just doesn't matter, whatever the subjects are, right? That there's a multitude of places to continue to learn and grow as a human being. It really strikes me with the new competency of coaching mindset is really how are you continuing personally to grow as a not just a, I don't think just as a coach, but as a human being. And that's a bit of what I'm hearing in what you're talking about is that you don't just stop like, okay, I'm a MCC coach, I'm a,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
no,
doctor, I'm a
absolutely.
professor, I'm a whatever I am. Done. I've now fully baked. So how
For
does
sure,
one
yes, yes.
continue to do that process of growth and continue to learn and develop as a person?
I think that was recognized early on by the ICF, for example, where every 3 years you need to reapply, and I think that is sending a message that you're never there. I mean, completely. You need to continue to learn and grow. Uh, I don't see that as an obligation. I think that is absolutely exciting and important to be on that journey. It is. I mean, it's the same for an athlete. If you are as an athlete, you stop training or you stop finding ways to be better. I'm just thinking of Federer. Who was a fantastic tennis player. He was still looking for ways to improve. So, and Rafael Nadal as well. I think he was playing better when he was older than when he was younger. But the other players were playing better as well. So he was continuously looking for ways to improve his game. Um, and so for me, it's a bit different. It's not that I want to just improve doing that one thing. I want to continue to learn from multiple perspectives. And that informs my coaching approach. That allows me to have different sorts of exchanges with my coaches. Sometimes it could be, helping them to build constructive relationship with others, to build, increase their emotional intelligence, for example. Could be one aspect, deal with some very specific situations, interpersonal communication situations. But it could also be, at other times, they may be facing existential dilemmas. How do you deal with that? That's a different level of conversation. Or sometimes, we could talk about fitness. I'm not a fitness expert, but I would, just as I could refer to a psychotherapist, I could refer to, a nutritionist, to MD, sports coach, but at least I can have a conversation already on those topics with my coaches because that's going to be essential for their well-being, their stamina. I'm not imposing that conversation, but at least I think I'm able to have that conversation with them and to go there as well if necessary.
Yeah, you know, the thing that shows up as you say that is if I have a sense of a broad, I don't know, it's like I don't need to be a jack of all trades, but having that knowledge, like a wide breadth of knowledge about a lot of things leads to having a capacity to be curious about things that if you've never even thought of whatever it is, whatever that
Yes.
topic is, you you may not have the capacity to be particularly curious, which means that as coaches, we might step over something really crucially important to the client, even if it's a
Mm-hmm.
referral to a, physiologist or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
because we weren't curious, because it's not in our wheelhouse, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
think,
And yes.
I
No,
think,
I'm just thinking of a situation. I had a medical condition uh, 15 years ago, so and it was a curious thing, and nobody I saw for a year. I saw different doctors, and they couldn't find out what the problem was. It is a sports doctor who was able to find that out, but he knew more about neurology than a neurologist, I think, because he was that curious person going beyond his own discipline. And he was also working with a team, an interdisciplinary team. So
right. So
that
lots
made
of
the difference. So
different,
sometimes you can have experts who, at some point, even in their own areas, they stop learning, and they may know less than somebody who has been curious about a number of disciplines. Of course, we cannot know it all. That is for sure. But that doesn't mean we cannot continue to learn.
Yeah, let that be a cautionary tale. Expertise at the cost of all other things is maybe not as useful as a well-rounded education of oneself. Absolutely.
Yes.
You know, as you are thinking about, like, I don't know, you do a lot of supervision, as I recall from another conversation I had with you. How do you see supervision impacting this capacity for self-awareness and growth in a coach?
I think supervision can be something great to help people step back and reflect about their practice. So that's very important to have a place also where they can discuss challenging situations, to have also the support that is required. However, one of the concerns I have with traditional supervision is that it is informed by, and I think you are a therapist initially, Lyssa. I think
Initially.
it's wonderful to have a knowledge of psychotherapy, but that can not be the only source of knowledge um, that supervisors call upon. So yes, having that knowledge is essential and it's a plus. But sometimes I see too many coach supervisors who rely solely on that. And for example, they won't know much about culture. So what can happen is that they may, for example, inadvertently say to a coachee that what they've done there is not appropriate, that's not right, but it's not right in their view of the world. It could be that in another culture, that same behavior could be appropriate. And so, and let me give an example. Are we supposed to be friends with our coaches? Maybe a supervisor may say, no, I mean, we need to have a boundary.
Healthy
I'm not supposed to be,
boundaries.
right.
Mm-hmm.
But in some cultures, if you don't want to be a friend, if you don't want to be close to the person, to have that personal connection, the coaching will simply not work because there is an expectation to build that close relationship. It may not be friendship in the way we think about it, but it's friendship nonetheless, in the sense of building a close connection.
Mm-hmm.
A friendship is about really caring for the other person, and that's what a coach does. So if you say, I don't want to be your friend, I'm not your friend, I'm a coach, that may be appropriate in one context, but not necessarily in another. We just need to be mindful of that. And so I would argue that a good coach supervisor should be familiar with coaching across cultures, with global coaching, should know these things and not be just an expert in psychotherapy, applying that knowledge to coaching.
Well, and it's sort of interesting that you bring that up because as my past life as a therapist, I have been in supervision in some form or another since 1992. And so I've had a lot of supervision. And maybe I didn't get great supervision when I was a therapist because a lot of the supervision, not all of it, I mean, I did get some very good supervision, but a lot of the supervision that I got was also very client focused. Like, what does the client need? What do I need to be doing for the
Really?
client? And so it was very much, looking at the kind of client focus. What's the relationship that I can support the client in, like, I don't know, getting their needs met, whatever, out there, or within the team, supervision around like who's doing what, when, where for this particular client. And what I discovered in coaching supervision that was really different was much more about just the exploration of my relationship to whatever I was struggling with. And the client was only a representation of something, right? And so it got to be
Yes.
much more of an exploration of like, why do I care about this client so much? And I'm not necessarily asking them the hard questions because I think friendship is on a spectrum and care is on a spectrum also. And sometimes maybe there's some sort of transference where they remind me of somebody I love dearly. And so therefore I'm a little, less challenging with that client, or this one frustrates me because they aren't ready to get off the hamster wheel and solve
Yeah, yeah.
whatever the problem is, and like what's that about, not about the client but for me. And I think
No, no,
that
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 no,
and I thought that
that's
was
my
so
experience as well.
important.
And I think yes, and I think uh, that is something that coaching supervisors do well. I find is not just they are not just focused on the coachee, but on the coach. I mean, we are the vehicle, so we need to work on ourselves as coaches. So I think that I've not met a coaching supervisor who doesn't do that, because that seems like almost absolutely critical to do that. The question is, when you are again helping that coach as a coach supervisor, is where are you helping that coach from? I mean, and so how much do you know about what if you know about these psychological phenomena? That's going to be an asset, of course, and that's very important. So you help your coach become more aware, your supervisee coach be more aware. But if you don't know about culture, or not much about culture, you're not going to be able to help the coach supervisee there. That's all I know.
Yeah, no, and I absolutely am in alignment with what you're sharing, because I think, I mean, from my perspective, that is that capacity to be curious then with somebody, but also I don't have to know, right? Like I can be open to the fact that there are many different ways to engage in a relationship. And I want to go back to something you said a second ago, which is, this idea of friendship. And I think that one of the things that I love about coaching is that if we learn about our own needs and boundaries, and know how to hold the space in a particular way for a particular amount of time, and we can also hold the space in a different way at a different time. I mean, it's not that different in some ways than like marriage. I mean, my husband and my relationship isn't a one tune thing regardless of the
Mhm.
situation. I mean, it shifts, and we're
Of course,
like
yes,
we
exactly.
talk to people on other sides of the room sometimes, and then we also talk to them together, right? Like human beings are quite capable of many ways
Yes.
of showing up with each other. And I think that's true as coaching relationships also. It makes me kind of wonder, because like I've had coaching supervision with people who I also got mentoring from, or who I also have, been a client of in some other capacity and gotten coaching
Yes, yes.
from, or gone to lunch with, right? Like, I mean, and that those different roles, there's a capacity to show up in those different roles. And I think this kind of goes back to ethics also. What are our agreements on how we'll be with each other within these different roles that we have with each
Yes,
other,
absolutely.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, yes, and that has to be clarified. Certainly. Yes. Yes.
But that's okay,
Absolutely.
because that's just a conversation then, so that both people are on the
Yes.
same
Yes.
page, and it gives us an opportunity. I mean, and I understand why in therapy it would be different, because there was such a hierarchy in therapy of expert to patient, honestly.
Yeah.
And in coaching, this is much more of a leveraging somebody else's insights and
Yes.
wisdom, and so
Yeah.
it's a very different
It is
relationship.
different. Yes. Although
Yeah.
I mean, as you know better than I do, even in therapy, different forms of therapy. Um,
Yeah.
some look a little bit more like coaching. Some are very remote from coaching.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it really also depends on what the client's needs are. I think some people come to us with more wounds that need less coaching and more containment and structure and tool building. And then other people come to us, to our earlier point, very self-aware, very, curious about themselves and how they're moving through the world, and how to tweak things so that they can maybe have a little bit, like, to move a little faster, or whatever it is that their goals are, to have more peace, more confidence in
Absolutely.
themselves. And those are just very different needs that the client brings to us. So I think these points are just so important, though, because I think it's important for coaches to be thinking about these things, because it's not just what's going on for the coach, it's also what's going on for the client, and the intersection of those human beings within
Hmm.
that space of coaching.
Absolutely.
What is something that you would share with the coaches, like maybe a piece of wisdom that you think is important as a place for a coach to be curious with themselves?
Piece of wisdom. As
Yes.
coaches, we are not so much there to to give advice to people or to impart our wisdom onto others. It's to, I, at the risk of repeating myself, I think that the what I would say is an invitation to take the time to learn from different people and from different disciplines and from different cultures, and not expect to know it all immediately, but to be on that journey. That's what really matters. Sometimes I see people who want maybe very early to be the master coaches and don't necessarily make the effort to learn. And then I see other people who continue to make an effort to learn all their lives, and probably the second approach is more conducive to mastery.
Yeah, yeah. I think that is a valuable reflection just in my own experience of moving towards an MCC mastery level coach, whatever that means. That it was that capacity to be willing to continue to grow and learn and not think I knew it all. I was the expert in everything, which was
Exactly.
really hard because apparently, while not all human beings are wired that way, I was apparently wired that way.
Yes. We don't know if it's wired or if it's educated or what, but
I think it was pretty
um,
culturally conditioned. I'll go with.
yes, yes.
What are you involved with today that is exciting you?
One thing that is exciting, and I've been doing for several years already, but I'm doing this program. It's called Leading and Coaching Across Cultures. I've done it many times face to face with people. It's a 3-day program. And now since COVID, I'm doing this also online, and it's happening now. I mean, it's in this case, it's instead of 3 consecutive days, it's 6 half days, and I'm in the middle of it right now. And I find that always very exciting because we have a group of people. In this case, we have here some Americans, we have some Chinese in the same group, we have several people from Europe, all coming together with different backgrounds, and it's such a rich and diverse environment. And I'm always amazed by. So I'm then it's also a certification program for the cultural orientation framework. It's this tool I've developed to just have a vocabulary to describe the cultural landscape, and there's an assessment that goes with that. But anyway, the they have in the course of the program to work as teams and to create something. And they experience firsthand, first of all, the difficulties of being part of this diverse team. But what strikes me is that every time they're able to go past that and create something great, really. Well, so they get to experience unity in diversity. It's not theory anymore. It's just they live that. They live that experience. And just yesterday, in fact, the two groups did really a wonderful presentation, a team effort, and I find that very exciting to see that. It gives me also a lot of hope when I see people like that who can be people who will then also promote unity and diversity wherever they are in the world. Still too few people. We need that much more in the world today. If you look at what is happening in the world, we need people like that, people of goodwill, wanting to act as bridges, wanting to promote, I guess, unleash what is best in humans and make the most of differences. And so that excites me when I guess I'm able to play a little part in promoting that, in training people who themselves then go on to make a difference at their level. I just hope that there is even more awareness about this and more people can take that on, because there is still so much to be done in the world when you look at what is happening today.
Yeah, the The ripple effect, though, is
The ripple effect.
profound. Brilliant.
Yeah.
I will definitely have links below for people to find you and to find the work that you're doing. So one of the things that so I'll have lots of links available to listeners to find you in all your different places, LinkedIn, your website, and that sort of thing. Your books, I know you've written several and co-authored many more, and I'll have links to those things as well. So one of my questions that I've been following this or finishing the conversation with lately has been, if you were to be writing your autobiography today, what would you title it at this point?
Well, I'm not. Let me give you an answer. Maybe you won't like my answer, but I'm not
That's
ready
okay.
I'm not ready to write an autobiography. Quite frankly.
Not yet ready.
Not ready, and not even interested in that.
Yeah.
Because I guess I'm more busy living my life at the moment. I have the sense that I've still a lot more to do, that I want to do, that I want to do, and so that's where my energy is. And I would find it also even a bit pretentious to write for me an autobiography. I mean, it's not that I won a Nobel Prize or that I'm a famous rock star, or or that I was the president of the US, or for example. So I'm trying to make a difference where I am, but I don't think I'm not interested in writing an autobiography. So I cannot,
Come
because
up
of
with
that,
this
I cannot
title.
even think of a
Well,
title.
I've heard so many, busy living my life. It's just wonderful. I think that's just brilliant. Oh, Philippe, thank you so much for being on the coaching studio today. I have very much enjoyed the conversation.
Likewise, a pleasure to speak with you, Lyssa. Thank you for inviting me.